Hello, everybody. Whoa, bad way to start. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining me. I'm Aaron Rutten, and it is my mission to help artists like you enjoy digital art and learn some new skills along the way. We're going to be live streaming today, as we do every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And today we're going to be doing something very special. I'm going to be creating a piece of artwork that is for a contest that is hosted by Corel, and it's on their Instagram. I don't know if they're showing it anywhere else, but basically they have this drawing of Spider-Man that was done by Todd McFarlane, and they want people to redraw it however they like and submit it to the contest. Now, I'm not expecting that I'm going to win the contest. It's just something to do for fun. I like Todd McFarlane. I'm a huge fan of Spawn. Spawn was, you know, that was what was up back in my day. So I got some Spawns here, original Spawns. And so I am going to basically combine a Todd McFarlane character with Spider-Man, which will be like I don't know. We'll have to think of a cool name, a better name than Violator Man, but Viler Man, I don't know. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw this in the style, hopefully, in the style of Todd McFarlane, and kind of, you know, mix the two characters together as best I can. So I had posted this and asked, you know, just had people guess as to what the character was supposed to be, and a lot of people guessed Venom and Violator, and I can see why, because there's not much to really indicate that this is Spider-Man, because there's no color. So that was a really good guess. A lot of people got that. Well, that's basically what this is going to be. I'll just catch up on the comments real quick, and then we will get right into the drawing. Since I know what I'm going to be doing today, I don't have to badger you guys for questions and stuff like that. If you do have a question, feel free to super chat it. I'm going to be not really answering too many questions here today, but if you're going to super chat, then I will absolutely answer your question, and it'll be pinned to the chat, and I will see it. Just as well, if you become a member, there's a link to that, or there's a button on my page that says join. And you can, of course, click that button if you want to become a member. Let's see. Oh, it's not popping out now. What the heck? You always think stuff is going to work correctly, and then it doesn't. But fortunately, I have all this fanciness going on here in XSplit. So you can become a member, and you can get exclusive emojis that you can use in the live chat, as well as a badge and early access to special members-only posts and videos, so check that out. And then, of course, there's the super chat, $sign down in the bottom of the chat if you want to pin a comment. So let's get right into a couple comments, and then we'll get right into the drawing. Hello, Angel's here, Angelica's here, Gihan's here, Tony Adkins is here, Holden's here, and he loves the intro. Mr. Tony Atkins says I'll have to do the Todd McFarlane sound effects. I'm not familiar with those. You mean the sound effects from inside the comic book? You know, like when they have them in the word bubble? Crunch and Gru and stuff like that. Shoop. I thought Shoop was a Salt and Pepper song. Shoop. Petar's here. Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining. Thanks for commenting in. Okay. Oh, Mr. Tony Adkins says he does it when he draws. I'll have to watch some live drawings by him. And actually behind me, well, you won't be able to see it, it's too tiny, but I do have a Jim Morrison figurine that's one of the Todd McFarlane Rockstar series. Okay, so I'm going to put on some music. I'm going to try to just draw and not talk a whole lot. I will talk a little bit here, but I'm going to try to just focus so that I'm doing something. So here we go. And let me know if the music is too loud or too quiet. It's just me slamming into my desk trying to get comfortable here. Okay, so this is just a rough sketch. I feel like I can do a Could probably do a better drawing. I don't really want to invest too much time into this though, so to see, I'll have to balance out being nitpicky with being practical here. One thing I did notice after I had some time to kind of think about what I'd done and look at it is that this horn actually needs to be a bit lower, and more like that. The reason why is because the angle of the head, you know, it's kind of like that, so the horns need to be a little bit angled too. Never really tried to draw Spider-Man or the Violator, so, you know, this will be my first attempt at doing both. I think another thing that I might want to do is to go ahead and bring this horn over a bit more. Yeah, I like that better. You can look up this character to kind of get a feel for what it's supposed to look like. I'm gonna make that a bit more angular too. Oh, this brush is irritating. I accidentally saved a variant of it. Now it wants to change colors on me constantly. Oh man, I'm gonna have to fix this brush. There we go. It's just me being lazy, like I want to complain about something when it's just as easy to fix. So I do have a few reference images that I'm using here. One is that Spawn comic book that I showed you. And I have of course that Spider-Man reference image that I'm supposed to copy. So that's why it's zoomed in really close to the face. That's why it tries to keep some of that form of Spider-Man, and there's going to be like Spider-Man's costume integrated into this. I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it. This is really just a concept that I'm developing over time. Taking a look at my comic book here, you won't be able to see it very well because it's, you know, kind of dark, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, around this time they kind of started to do a lot of coloring with Photoshop. Photoshop wasn't very sophisticated back then, so this may have been colored digitally. I believe that this is still ink, but it may have been inked in Photoshop as well. So I'm going to go with that kind of inked look. I just want to get a feel for the kind of lines, if they're more irregular or more even. Looks like they're pretty even, so I'll go with this brush here. And they vary in thickness a lot. So I'm going to maybe try to find a maximum thickness and use my pen pressure to kind of go between that. It's a little bit challenging drawing with this much pressure, because you have to be, you know, very careful about not doing it too hard or too light. Suppose I'm just going to kind of jump around from place to place here. Since I'm working digitally, I can afford to overpaint in some areas because then I can go through and just erase. No doubt I was influenced by a lot of these comic books too, you know, at the time when I was reading this stuff, which came out in the 90s, that's really the kind of art that I probably thought I would want to do as an adult. Like, wouldn't it be great to be a comic book artist? And this thing was $1.95. I mean, I haven't bought a comic book in a long time, but I bet you they're probably like $5 or $6, you know, maybe more than that now. I have to admit, I kind of dropped off on Spawn. Like, I don't know what the last Spawn I read was, but I don't know, I used to be pretty into comic books, and then I kind of dropped off. I guess it just... I would get a lot of comic books from my dad that were like hand-me-downs, so I guess that's probably why, you know, it was easy to be really into comic books. Go away, radial menu. And I did buy some myself, but, you know, when I was a kid, I didn't have a whole lot of money to go out and buy comic books. I mean, in retrospect, you know, I had more money than some kids have. Some kids have zero money to buy comic books, and I got to buy a few, so it's not like I'm going to say I was poor or anything, but it's not like I could just go out and get comic books all the time. So then as an adult, it's like, you know, are you going to buy comic books only if you really, really like them, or you have the money to buy them, you know? You know what would be fun is to get some, you know, some more of these comics that I'm nostalgic about. I'm going to try to keep the line width pretty small for this stuff. Shoop. I'm going to try those sound effects. Shoop. I don't know. I wonder if that keeps it more entertaining when you're watching somebody painting. It worked for Bob Ross. You know, as I became an adult too, I did experiment with making my own comic books. And I think I got through like one comic book page. And I wrote the script for more than one page, but like, you know, had kind of like a pilot script. And then by the time I got through sketching, inking, coloring, and then doing the word bubbles and backgrounds on one page, I was like, nah. I don't have it in me to do this right now. You know, maybe at some point in my life I will, but not right now. So I had to recognize that that's a lot of work. And if it takes off and you have a great idea, cool, you can make a living off of that, but it's pretty hard to... Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say it's hard to do, but it seems like it would be difficult to do. Like, you'd have to produce all that stuff yourself. If you were a team, that might be different. But it's a lot of work. More props to the people who do it, though. And maybe someday I will have the determination to do it, but right now I think I just got so many other things to do. You know, making videos takes up so much time. Like right now, I'm kind of in the zone where I'm working on completing my new course for Corel Painter 2019, but at the same time, I have lots and lots of YouTube videos to record, you know, because I put out several videos each week. So I've been doing a ton of recording and editing. Like, you have no idea. It's an inhuman amount. This is kind of relaxing though, doing this live stream, because, you know, I don't have to worry about this being perfect. And this is a drawing, it's fan art, so I don't have to really worry too much about coming up with an idea. Those are getting a bit too thick there. Now if you did this in something like Adobe Illustrator, then you'd have control over each of those strokes. So you could easily make them thicker or thinner without having to redraw them. But I feel like this is faster overall just to put a lot of lines down. Okay, let's see. We're gonna have to get a little tricky here with this tongue. Thing keeps popping up because I keep touching the screen. It's the tricky thing about touch. Sometimes you don't want it. I don't even know how far I'm gonna get on this, honestly. This might take me a while to finish. We'll see if I'm gonna do it all in one sitting or if I'll just do part of it and then maybe work on it again in another live stream. The deadline for this contest is the 31st, so I still have time. Probably won't rush through it. One thing that can be very helpful too when you're working is just to create a new layer. Call it lines and write down what your line width is that you were using. Because if I change this now, it's going to change the whole feel of my line dynamics. So just keep that hidden there and locked. Okay. Sorry I'm not really on the questions today. I'm trying to really focus on drawing. But if you do have a question that you really want an answer to, feel free to do the super chat. I will check that out. Then it will be pinned, and I will most certainly see it and answer it. So there's a lot going on in the mouth here. I just want to make sure that I have everything. I don't want to leave out any areas. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be in shadow here. I'm not really going to worry too much about hatching or anything like that right now. I want to try to complete the bulk of the bigger outlines first so that my line width stays consistent, so I have to resist trying to get into any of the small details right now. I think that might just about do it for the big broad lines. Zoom out and just see how I'm looking here. It can be helpful to view it very small. Hard to kind of condense a lot of this down into this small profile too, like this big horn on the back, and maybe that needs to be much bigger, but I don't want to go too far out of the frame. Like everything is contained within the frame on the reference image, so you know, I don't want to have more of the body kind of coming off of it. I want it to stay within that theme and be, you know, some of the body would be pulled back into Spider-Man's proportions if this is half Spider-Man and half Violator, so that's kind of my logic on the horn. So now I'm going to go smaller with the brush. There's a gap somewhere in my line. Where's the gap in my line? I must find it. No, it's still there. Don't you just hate that? So if there's a gap, you can't use the paint bucket. Even if it's a tiny, tiny gap like that. I'm gonna wait to do too much detail on the face, actually, because I don't want to do too much Violator here. I want to do some Spider-Man. Okay, so I feel like I need to bring a little more Spider-Man into this. So I'm going to do the webbing on a separate layer. This must have been the most annoying part of having to do Spider-Man, is like doing all this webbing. I guess after a while you get it down. I did the webs the wrong way. Gotta fix that. So they should be going like this on this part of the costume. Now, some of this webbing might get covered up by shadows and things like that too. We'll have to see. I've accidentally added some stuff that's not lines on the webbing layer, but I think for the most part I'm pretty happy with those lines, so that ought to be alright. Question is, do I do Violator eyes that are kind of broken up like Fly's eyes into a compound eye? Or do I do Spider-Man's white eyes? I'll take a poll and see. What do you guys think, guys and gals? Should we do the Fly eyes? Or should we do bright white Spider-Man eyes? Because I feel like it's becoming more Violator dominant than Spider-Man dominant, but that might change with the color. Mad Pony says Spider-Man eyes for sure. Albin says Spidey eyes. Philosophic also prefers the white eyes. Alright. I tend to agree. So let's scrap that. We'll keep the white eyes. So now I don't think there's much of anything else in my sketch that I need to keep. So now I can continue focusing on the line art. When you look at some of the artwork that's done in these comic books, you often wonder, you know, why did they choose to do this particular weird shape here or there? I think they just let their mind wander, but I also tend to think maybe it's to cover up mistakes. You know, maybe there's like a area over here that they didn't like, so instead of trying to redraw it, they just put a little shadow over it or a crack or something, you know? I'm still gonna try not to get too much into like small fine hatching yet, but I want to be pretty spontaneous about the marks that I make so that I get all this nice character. This is probably, you know, one of those things that I observed from Todd McFarlane and a lot of other comic book artists, is the amount of detail that they can get just by using different values of, or not different values of ink, but implying value using ink, by creating different textures and different lines and just so everyone knows too, this is not a sponsored video. I'm not, you know, Wacom didn't ask me to promote their contest. It's just something that I happened to see on Instagram and I thought it would be fun to participate. If you want to participate, you can too, but you don't have to. Always looking for stuff to do during the live streams, and this seemed like it was right up my alley. So I like to do, you know, it's easier to do this kind of line art stuff with simple fills than to do something that's like a painting. I like to do the paintings, but you know, it's hard to make something that looks good in a short amount of time. You know, it's kind of the fun thing. Like, if you look at each of these marks, some of them share similarities, but for the most part, they're all kind of different and unique. And, you know, I didn't think, you know, well, I'm going to draw one that looks like a N, and I'm going to want to draw one that looks like a bird with a broken wing, and one that looks like a hot dog. I just do it. You know, I think about the contour. The contour of this thing is going like this. So I know that I want these shapes to follow those contours. You know, it wouldn't make any... I mean, I could go against that like I've done here with these cracks, and I could have a crack that goes like that, running perpendicular to it. That's okay. But, you know, that kind of messes up the flow in that one particular spot, so I don't really like that. But I could, you know, maybe have some that kind of come out like that. I feel like that doesn't harm it too much. Near the end, it could be maybe a bit more fractured. Okay, this is starting to come together, I think. Just want to make sure there isn't anything too big and broad that I want to fill in with these bigger brushes. I mean, I can only imagine, like, how... I mean, I could probably watch some of his videos and find out, but it's got to feel so good being able to use these digital art tools, because, you know, they had Photoshop back when they were coloring this stuff. They probably had Wacom tablets, but now there's like Cintiqs, you know, better Cintiqs. The software and the computers are much faster, you know, they're more sophisticated. I mean, coloring line art is getting to the point to where it's becoming somewhat automated, and that's nice. So it's a good time to be a comic book style illustrator, I think, especially a freelance one. You know, you could make your own comics and make some pretty cool stuff now. Now I don't know if I'll have the jaw coming out be Violator, or if I'll have it be Spider-Man. I'm thinking I'll probably keep it Spider-Man? I don't know. Try it with the webbing and see. Yeah, I like it with the webbing. Trying to decide whether or not I like it with just one division like this. I think I do. I like it a lot. Okay, so I think I have the bulk of the big broad stuff that I want to put in. So now I can start doing some hatching here. I'll just, I'll take a quick pause here and kind of catch up on comments. We'll take a comment break. Albin says you should add some saliva to the tongue, definitely. That's on the list, but that'll be something I'll add near the end. Albin says his tongue looks really dry. That's a dry, dry tongue. Don't worry, I'll make that tongue juicy. I'm just catching up on comments here. Albin says, is the stream going to end after I'm done with this drawing, or am I going to do another one? It depends on how far I get, honestly. I don't know. I'm only probably going to go till 1, so maybe a little bit after that. So I've only got less than an hour. I don't think I'm done inking, so chances are I might finish inking this, maybe get to the point of adding some flat colors. We'll see. Feel it out. Anita's here. Good to see you, Anita. Anita's a member of my channel. You can see that by that sweet badge there next to her name. Thank you very much, Anita, for becoming a member. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and jump back into the drawing here. Let's do some hatching. Let's do some saving too, why not? Always good to save while you're working. I save a lot more when I'm drawing, you know, on my own. But when I'm doing live streams, I don't always think about it. Okay, hatching. Hatching is thin little lines that you use to enhance the form or create shading. It's not thin enough. That's probably good. I don't know why, but there's all these little shading things here. It's probably to cover up mistakes in the webbing, I would think. But then it's also like there's more shadow in there. Don't want to make it too convoluted though by adding too much, because that'll interrupt the webbing. See, I can make the side of this head here look like it's kind of getting a little bit of shadow by adding some hatching to that. This stuff is really relaxing. You can really just kind of zen out. You may have seen the different ink drawings that I've done in my sketchbooks, and they're often kind of in this style, but they're more abstract. But a lot of the things that I'm shading are still shapes that could be pieced together into something that's a little more based on reality, like this drawing. So even though I'm just kind of like spacing out and drawing, I'm still getting a lot of practice that I can use for a serious drawing, you know? As long as it's too quiet, I'm going to change it to something else. Philosophic says, am I going to color it? Yes. Philosophic also says, you have so much smoothing delay on each stroke. Yes, that makes it, you know, it just makes your ink easier. If you were using an ink pen in real life, you'd be able to press down, you know, and get some amount of friction. So I think smoothing in this case is just necessary for the amount of friction it takes to keep a stable line. But if I were doing, you know, when I'm doing more of these cracks and things in here, I'll probably reduce it because I'll want it to be a little more loose. So let's see, where were we? Hatching. Zoom in a bit here too. Ooh, I see all kinds of spots that I missed. I'll have to have time to go in and clean those up too. See, just a few little lines here and there add some three-dimensionality to these fangs. I'm just being pretty spontaneous about it. I mean, this comes with practice, you know. You learn pretty quickly just doing little doodle drawings what's going to work and what's not. And you can apply that to the serious drawings as well. And I mean, any drawing can be a serious drawing, even if it is something that's more abstract. This is going to take some effort. I thought this would be a really easy drawing. And it is, in a sense. I don't know about easy. It's less involved than some of the other things that I do. But maybe it's not. Just imagine if you were illustrating an entire comic book, you know. You'd have to do page after page of this stuff, and it would have to be consistent. No doubt you'd have to draw the same thing many, many times over and over again until you got exactly what you wanted. Gotta watch out with this eraser because you don't want to go too soft with it. See, this stuff just kind of helps separate things. It helps the people looking at your painting or at your drawing understand what's what. You know, because it's simplified, but if it's simplified, then you have to kind of have some little hints here and there. Like, these are teeth, that's the jaw. Make it very clear. And sometimes it's still not always clear. Now see, these are following the curvature of this, that way when they're next to some of the other strokes or some of the other hatching, it doesn't get mixed up. This is what happens when I do more detailed stuff in live streams. It's like hours of me just doing basically the same thing over and over again, you know? It's kind of why I like to do the shorter things, then it keeps it moving, you know? This is fun too. That does look like a pretty dry tongue, but I also want it to be kind of gnarly. Maybe I will clean it up just a bit. Alright, more hatching. Hooray, more hatching. You thought we were done hatching? Oh no. Got many, many, many more hatchings to go. I'm taking inspiration from my reference image, the Todd McFarlane image of Spider-Man, to make sure it kind of stays in that vein. You need a lot of this stuff to imply all the different contours and wrinkles in the fabric. I don't want to go that far out with it, because the jaw is sticking out, and at that point it might not be casting a shadow on the body. Might be good to zoom out a bit too. I feel like I'm looking at this a bit too close and it's hard to gauge some of that stuff that I'm doing down there. Going to be a blue part of the costume there. Making the backside there more substantial so it pops out more. Alright, now I'm going to reduce the damping quite a bit so that I can do some looser stuff here. Do this on a new layer as well. You can see I'm just letting my pen kind of dance around. Doesn't hurt to eat away at some of the lines too using the eraser. My wrist is starting to cramp up. I take a break and stretch here. Has that ever happened to you when you got your pen gripped for so long that it starts to get really sore right here, and you get like the claw? Like if you draw for like hours and hours and hours on end, your hand just feels like frozen like this. It's so sore. And I've only been drawing for like an hour and a half, maybe closer to an hour since I've taken breaks, but just all that work I just did made me sore. Philosophic says yes, hand and back. My back, not so much. That takes a little bit longer. So I'm gonna take a break, drink some water, maybe answer some questions or read some comments. Philosophic has to go because they have a migraine. I'm sorry to hear that. Hope you feel better. And they might see me next Wednesday. I hope so. Just so you can see what I'm doing. What's he pouring into something? Well, what do we think so far? Coming along? The color is really going to help it make a lot more sense, I think. Some good questions here I'll answer in just a second. So how do I know where to put all of these lines? Albin asks. It's kind of a multi-part answer here. I'm looking at a reference photo of a drawing of the Violator and of Spider-Man, so I'm combining that in my mind because those are, like, however Todd McFarlane shades Spider-Man or Violator, that is going to define his style, I guess. And so there's certain things that he does that you can identify if you really look at his work. I'm probably not picking up on every subtle nuance of Todd McFarlane's style. I might be doing a lot of things incorrectly or interpreting them the wrong way. It's definitely possible. But then I combine that with just thinking about what the general lighting is in the piece and what the contours are of the forms. And everything in this painting here, or in this drawing, I'll demonstrate on a layer here. This is, why isn't it working? I'm on the eraser, that's why. This long shape here for this horn, this is just a long cylinder. The head is kind of spherical. You know, this is kind of a spherical shape here, so if you know how to shade a basic sphere, cylinder, cone, actually, I'm sorry, the horn is a cone, but it's cylindrical, it comes off to a point. So if you know how to shade a cone and a sphere and a torus and a cube and a cylinder, then you will be able to shade pretty much anything from imagination. Practice plus experience plus references, definitely. See you later, Philosophic. Kira's here, good to see you, Kira. Okay, so I'll continue on now with this. Try to wrap it up as far as the fine little lines and things like that. You know, a lot of this stuff, as far as placement, really kind of comes down to aesthetics. And aesthetics are like just how something looks and feels and whether or not that looks good. And good is subjective, right? Like, we all think different things are good. But there can be some consensus on some things as far as what's good and what's bad. So that's kind of aesthetics. And you have to feel the aesthetics of what you're doing, you know, like, basically, you've seen me do it here, I'm just quick about it and I don't talk a lot about it, but if I put down something that I don't like, I either turn it into something else, erase it, correct it, fix it, you know, I don't just leave it there. An obvious aesthetic flaw would be like if I did something like this and put this on here. That doesn't make any sense at all. What is that? Is that maybe something coming from the background? Who knows? You know, I obviously don't want to do that. I obviously don't want to, like, do that. That doesn't really work. It looks like his horn broke off and he glued it back together. You know, those are obvious flaws, but then there's some more subjective flaws, like, you know, if I went like this here or something, that might look kind of weird because it goes against the perspective of the piece. If I went like that, that might make more sense, or if it was more like that. So you can kind of see things like that in your mind. Up here, a curve like that might kind of be okay. I have to see. No, I think it's better like that. So see, you can see just by doing it. Try it. If it doesn't work, you know, if you were doing this, let's say, traditionally, and you did that, and you can't undo because it's ink, no big deal, because now you have this crazy crack that comes out like this, and then it makes sense there, right? You tried it, you messed it up, you saw that you messed it up, you won't do it again, but you just have one of those in there, and you know what? That flaw is okay. If you happen to do it down here, and you went, whoops, that's not the right perspective, again, there's different things that you could do to kind of correct that, or turn it into something else. And I just did some undos there to fix that, but you get the point. Since I'm not working traditionally, I'm not going to deal with that. Even that was a demonstration and it's bothering me enough to not want it in here. That's exactly what I mean by aesthetics. That other one I'm okay with. You can see I'm putting a lot of time into this too, you know? That's really what it comes down to. Like, I'm probably not putting enough time into it. I rushed through a lot of stuff. And with practice, you get to do this stuff a lot faster, you know? Todd McFarlane could have whipped out a Spider-Man Violator hybrid in probably, you know, 15 minutes or something. It's taking me a couple hours to do it. This is my first time. So I'd say, in that case, it's not too bad. These are supposed to be like little tufts of fur, I think. So I think the costume's kind of ripped open here. I'm going to go ahead and just save this. I'm going to save as. And I'm just going to take the plunge. I'm going to go ahead and merge down some layers here. This lines layer we don't need. And I'll save that. Because now I want to be able to go in here and not have to hop around back and forth between layers. I'm sure there were probably inking techniques to erase too, like you could use whiteout and then or non-photo colors and things like that. If you wanted to eliminate a mistake, I'm sure it was possible when they did this kind of art. See, there was an aesthetic flaw in my mind. I didn't like how thick that was. I'm trying to let this have some of my style in this, because this is supposed to be draw this in your style, so, you know, this is my style combining some other people's styles. Starting to get into the territory of probably overworking this for what it is, you know? It's not like I'm getting paid to do this. So at a certain point, it's diminishing returns. You know, what I put into it is not necessarily going to get me any more back. And I do want to try to make some decent progress on this, if not complete it, so I might have to kind of just not nitpick too much here. That's really hard for me to do. You see me do this every time where I'm like, okay, I need to be done with it, and then I keep messing with it. It's hard to resist. I must be able to do it. I must be able to resist. That's what you gotta tell yourself, I guess. Apparently I'm very weak and I have no willpower. I'm still going. Okay, it's not like I can't add to this more if I need to. Let's put in some color so that I can say I added some color to it. Let's do the red. Everybody probably wants to see the red here. Make sure I'm getting the exact color, more or less, that was chosen. Say that's pretty close. Wouldn't that be funny if this actually won the contest? It's not too bad. It's actually kind of cool. I mean, I'm sure people are going to come up with better stuff that's more, you know, in their style. This isn't really... This is more other people's styles, but that's all a style is just a combination of other people's styles. It's pretty hard to be unique nowadays. Oh, let's see if it starts to look more like Spider-Man. Yeah! I'm liking it. I like it a lot. Let's put in some blue here. Keeping all my colors on separate layers in case I need to change them. Now what to do next? Let's do the tongue. So the fur here needs, or I don't know what it is, if it's fur or whatever it is, the skin of Violator needs to be kind of a light gray, but because I'm on a white canvas here, or a very light canvas, it's going to be hard to see that. So I'm going to choose a color that is not the color of the fur that stands out. So let's just say something like this. I'll change the color after the fact. That way I can make sure that I got it nice and filled in. Some of these are easier just to fill in, and some of them are easier to use the paint bucket on. If they're small enough, you might as well just fill them in, like I'm doing on here, but the other ones I'm going to use the paint bucket on. Alright, I think I need to rest my wrist again. This is turned out to be kind of a brutal painting here. Getting that cramp again. It's because I did all that hatching and stuff. So always good to stretch. It's good to get up too. I got the Fitbit that reminds me to get up, do some steps. Philosophic wants to know if I have any tips on sandhills texture on desert. I have some custom brushes if you go to my website, aaronrutten.com, that can make sandhills. I also have a course that teaches you how to paint sand dunes. It's one of my landscape painting courses that you can find on my website. City ruins in the desert. I don't have anything specifically on ruins, but I do have some courses that are about drawing in perspective, specifically drawing architecture, that could be helpful. Catalina says, I missed a tooth. I did miss a tooth. Thank you. Uh-oh, now you got me started again, though. I will actually take a break, because I'm serious about how it feels. I mean, a lot of you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But I will make the teeth a more appropriate color. They can be more or less whitish. I should save what I have too. Let's catch up on some comments here. Albin says, how do you change the color of the teeth when you've painted them a different color? Most art applications will have something called preserve transparency or lock transparency or lock alpha or protect alpha. They're all called different things. Transparency is alpha. It's information that determines whether or not a pixel is transparent or opaque or somewhere in between. And you can lock that. So essentially, these teeth are on a layer. You can't really see. If I show you, like, the red is on a layer, for example. And if I lock the transparency, I'm locking the transparent pixels, the areas that I haven't painted red onto. So I can only now add pixels or paint or change the color of that red area. So if I wanted to change Spider-Man's costume to a blue like this, then I could do that. That looks kind of cool. What I want is for this to be against other drawings and the same reference drawing, and to look like a mutation of it. You know what I mean? Like I want there to be enough visual information that was from the original image still in this. And I guess I can see kind of where I'm at on that right now. So here's the original. It's going to be kind of hard to show mine on top of that. I'll have to wait till it's filled in all the way, but you can kind of get the impression of what I'm going for. Now, of course, you have to turn off that protect alpha if you're painting on a layer with nothing on it. Otherwise, you won't be able to do anything. Yeah, oh, those eyes are popping. And I need to do the horn in the background. And that is going to be kind of a yellowish, kind of a color like that. Now I'll go ahead and do it brighter in a different color so that I can see it. Now since I have my layers stacked, a lot of these color layers are actually above this horn, so I can paint like right over the tongue and the paint doesn't cover it, it goes behind it. So I've been kind of strategic about how I've done these layers. And that saves me a lot of time. It's just a lot more comfortable too. And the horn in the foreground, that's going to be covering a lot of stuff, but it will not be covering the teeth, so I know that it makes sense to put that in between the teeth and everything else. So I have to be careful on the edge where it might overlap the red and the gray, but I can paint behind the teeth. And the black area doesn't really matter because I can't paint over the black. The black lines are on top of everything. Try to do it just using one layer and this would be a disaster of a painting. It would look a certain way, but this is definitely the way to do it. And this is not unlike how they probably would have colored Spawn at the time. Getting a lot of layers built up here. Okay. Who knows what kind of weird faces I was just making there. I always forget to just leave my camera off when I'm drawing. Oh, we need the other horn in the background too. That'll be an easy one to fill in. All right. Now I'll pick that color that I was going to use. Okay. So now I want to think about what the background color is. This color here, might as well just sample it. All right. Coming together. ArtWisp is going to get the Mobile Studio Pro. That's awesome. That is an excellent tablet. Tempted to want to do something to the background, but I can't, so I won't. So let's see, what kind of shading has been done? Not very much. I'm looking at the reference photo that you can't see. Looks like there's something though. It's almost like a little bit of watercolor of a different, of like a desaturated tone. Whatever, Todd McFarlane. I'll do that. That's kind of odd to me, but I'll do it. It looks kind of like it's a glazing brush. The edge is a little bit hard. So maybe it's just something like this. But the value is a bit lower. Or higher, if you will. Yeah, it's something more like that. I gotta be careful not to get it on anything else. So what I need to do then, I need to back up a bit. I need to get a selection of the red and use that to trap everything in to that shape. So then I can't paint over the eyes, even if I wanted to. I think that's about it for shading, in his example at least. Take down the opacity of that so it's a more subtle blend. Okay, I can live with that. Now, I'm thinking about how I'm going to combine this shading style with the shading style of Todd McFarlane's Violator. I suppose the Spider-Man element of him could remain as it is, and then I could try to kind of... because the Violator has more levels of shading. It has 3 or 4 or 5 different levels, versus Spider-Man just has like 2. We'll see. I'll feel it out. Sometimes when you don't know what to do, you can also just do the easy stuff, like the teeth. I don't have to fuss too much with those. One thing I need to do though on the teeth is zoom into them. And actually, one of the things I noticed that he does is he kind of separates the teeth and gives them some kind of angular stuff. I have to show you, I can't really describe it, but and this is because it's going to enhance the shading on the tooth. So let's see. Oh, I see one thing that I might have overlooked. Glad I noticed that. Yeah, it's a nice little detail. Okay, I was working on the teeth, wasn't I? I got sidetracked there. I was thinking about where the lighting is in the piece, and I noticed that detail on the eyes. So the lighting, I feel, is kind of... it's from the top. It's a little bit hard to tell. I want to say it's mostly from like the top left, kind of, but pointing at the person. So I don't think it's all that specific. But I'll need to know that for the horns. So I'll go ahead and determine that it is coming from the top. This is turning out to be a very detailed piece. Thanks for the tip on the music. Gets a bit out of control there. I also I forget and I talk a little bit quieter than I should. I'm gonna pick a shadow color here. That's a bit too dark. Let's use our temporal color picker here. Something like that. That's why it's nice to be able to move that. Ah, yes, that is exactly what I wanted. This color of the horns really kind of blends with the background a bit too much. Not much I can do about that though. So I won't worry about it too much right at this point, but I might have to do something later to adjust that. Gotta take another wrist break. I'm getting old. Let's save this. Figure out how much longer I'm going to keep going, how much more I got in me. The heat's starting to kick in too. I got these lights. I'm in a very small room with many computer screens and computers and cameras. And it's hot out. Everybody knows it's hot. Before I forget, there's one thing I want to do to this. Put a little highlight on that stuff like that. I'll have some there eventually too. Just kind of plotting my next move here. Do you see one thing? That's actually supposed to go in front of the teeth. No problem, I can fix that. Bet that happened a lot when they were making these comics. They're like, think they're about to publish it, and they're like, wait a minute, dude, the horn is going on the wrong side of the teeth. We're gonna have to fix that. That might be why they're broken at the end, because that happens, and there would be lines going perpendicular to the form. Trying to decide whether or not I want that horn to be sticking out there. I think this one's a bit too thick. All right. No, I'm not saying much, but I'm trying to kind of focus here so I can get this done, or at least most of the way done. And whatever I do not finish will be pretty minimal. Like, I'll probably just go in and zoom in real close and make sure that I didn't miss any little spots, but for the most part this is about how it's going to look when I submit it. A lot of what they do in this style is they'd create selections and then airbrush into them. So I'm going to try to get that kind of effect here. I'm getting kind of near the end here. bring out some of these edges here. Kind of view it from far away just to see how it's coming along. Kind of compare it to our original here. So I'll turn the music down too. So here's the original Spider-Man that I'm supposed to base my image off of, and here's mine. I need to make the red pop a bit more. Maybe a bit more still. I think what that is, now that I see it, this shading has a bit of the environment color in it. That's what it is. But not too much though. Almost forgot the inside of the mouth there. One of those times when you think you're done and then you go back and you're like, oh, I totally missed something. Alright, I think I'm going to call this one done for now. I probably will tweak it a bit more, but for the most part this is how it's going to look. And then I will submit it, and you can keep an eye out on my Instagram for that. That's where I'll be submitting it. Hit those teeth right. Now we're going into nitpick land here. Just need to complete the eye. What didn't I do with the eyes? There's some... The eye looks finished to me. What do you mean by complete the eye? Or maybe you were thinking I was going to do Violator eye. We all decided we were going to do Spider-Man eyes. I'll make the eyes glow too. That might look kind of cool. See a mistake I made there. Just when you think you're done, start seeing all kinds of mistakes. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just call this done for now. There's some weird little blob here. Oh, I see, it's part of this background. Okay, so we'll do a before and after. There's Todd McFarlane's version of Spider-Man. Here's my Spider-Man Violator hybrid, done in the style of Todd McFarlane, mixed with, I guess, a little bit of my style. So what does everybody think? Comment in, let me know. Is this contest worthy? Contest worthy for someone who doesn't really care if they win or not. It's not about winning, it's about participation. Trap God says it's good. Or Trap God says nice work. ArtTube says it's good, thank you. Catalina says cool, thank you Catalina. Man, I'm hot. I worked hard. I worked hard for you. If you appreciate how hard I worked, definitely check out that super chat button down there. Anything helps. It supports the live streams that I do every Wednesday here and all the free videos that I put out. Or be cool like Anita and become a member. And then you'll get badges and emojis and There's lots of members-only posts that I share in my community tab, early releases of my videos, cool stuff like that. Trap God says the teeth are perfect in their opinion. Alex Smith says, just popped in and this looks awesome. Thank you, Alex. I have to say, as far as what I think of it, it's a little bit hard because the idea is what just like popped into my mind and I went with. So in my mind, the idea, like if you just, it's just two words, right? And a plus sign. It's Violator plus Spider-Man. And when you see it that way, it's like, cool, yeah, okay. But then when you try to actually work out all of the details, like, well, how much is Violator and how much is Spider-Man and what colors do you use and how do you shade it and how do you mesh the styles? There's so many decisions there that I think ultimately, as I started to actually work it out, it became evident that it wasn't all that practical and that, you know, I don't know what the original vision was. The original vision was like, cool, it'll be awesome, it'll look right, but I don't think I visualized in my mind what that would look like. But I appreciate the challenge of having tried it and seeing how it worked out. But like the Violator is not human proportions, so, you know, like the back of the head where it goes into the body and then the horn, that whole kind of thing, like that feels a little awkward to me, but at the same time, if I leave that horn out, then you don't really see, you know, it doesn't really look like the Violator. Like I can show you a picture here. So, I can't see it all that well, sorry. Stupid glare from the lights. Well, anyways, he has this horn in the back, and it comes out of his back, so you can see he's all spindly and like gangly and stuff, so it's hard to mix that kind of shape with Spider-Man, given I can only show like from here up, you know. So that's the tricky thing about it. But when I posted the rough sketch, which looked way looser than this and didn't have any color at all, people were able to guess that it was Venom mixed with Violator, and several people did, so I feel like, you know, had I had the red color in there, they would have said Spider-Man, so I feel like I'm on the right track. Like, I created something that reads how it's supposed to, but it wasn't all that practical, and that happens sometimes, you know, like, you get a really good idea, and you put it down on paper, or on digital canvas or whatever, and you're like, I don't know, it seemed like a good idea, but then when I tried it, it wasn't. ArtTube wants to see a Hulk in the next video. I can't say that it won't happen, but I don't do a whole lot of fan art, nor do I draw a lot of superheroes. I just kind of made an exception here because I thought this was a fun one, but you know, I might do a Hulk. We'll see. Julie's here. Good to see you, Julie. So we're coming up on 2 now. It's about as long as I can go. I appreciate everybody watching, and if you haven't subscribed already, make sure to click that subscribe button and enable notifications through the bell icon so you don't miss a single new video. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time for another live stream.